Okay, let's explore a really counterintuitive idea. What if I told you that a huge, devastating war in the Middle East could actually make the US dollar stronger? I know, it sounds crazy, right? But stick with me. When you start to follow the path of global energy, a pretty scary logic starts to emerge. All right, picture this. You wake up tomorrow and suddenly 15 million barrels of oil per day have just vanished from the market. I'm not talking about a slow decline. I mean overnight. Poof, gone. This isn't just a little price bump at the pump. No, this is a full-blown system shock, the kind that brings the entire global machine to a grinding, screeching halt. So you're probably asking, what could possibly cause a shock that big? Well, this exact catastrophic scenario could become a reality if a major conflict with Iran breaks out. And it all comes down to one single spot on the map, the world's most critical energy artery, the Strait of Hormuz. So what is this Strait of Hormuz anyway? It's this incredibly narrow strip of water, but here's the kicker. It is the only sea passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. That's it. There's no other way out. So if you control that strait, you basically have a stranglehold on a massive chunk of the world's energy supply. And just to put that into perspective, think about the sheer volume we're talking about. About a fifth, that's 20% of the entire planet's daily oil supply squeezes through that one little waterway every single day. That is just an insane amount of risk concentrated in one tiny, super vulnerable spot. Okay, so back to our war scenario. This isn't just about things slowing down. No. We're talking about traffic through the strait getting slashed by 98%. The tankers just stop. And those 15 million barrels a day we were talking about, they're just gone. This is what triggers that immediate, absolutely catastrophic global energy shock. And a shockwave like this, it doesn't just stay put in the Persian Gulf. Not a chance. It kicks off a devastating chain reaction, like dominoes falling one after the other, spreading across the entire global economy. So which dominoes are the first to get knocked over? You're looking at the manufacturing powerhouses of East Asia. We're talking China, India, Japan, South Korea. And why them? It's simple, really. They get something like 80% of their imported oil straight from the Persian Gulf. Their entire economic model, everything that makes them run, is built on energy that just got switched off. And right there, you see this huge divide crack open in the global economy. On one side, you have the energy importers, nations that absolutely have to bring in foreign oil. They get crippled, almost instantly. Their factories just go dark. But on the other side, you've got the energy exporters, the countries that produce their own. They're shielded, at least from that first devastating blow. Meanwhile, what's happening in Europe? Well, they're another huge energy importer, and they find themselves backed into a really terrible corner. With all that oil from the Gulf gone, they're staring down their own economic catastrophe. They're forced to make these unbelievably tough choices about where to get their power, or if they even can. Okay, so we've got Asia in chaos, Europe in a corner. Where does that leave the United States? Now, let's be super clear here. Nobody wins in a global catastrophe like this. Nobody. But America's position, well, it's pretty unique. You see, the US is insulated by a few really key strengths. First, it's energy independent. That's huge. It means the lights stay on. It's also got this massive domestic consumer market to fall back on. Geographically, it's protected by two giant oceans. And of course, there's the dominant military. Now, none of this makes the US totally immune, not at all. But it does make it way more resilient than pretty much anyone else on the planet. And that's really the crucial point here. It's all about the scale of the damage. For a lot of countries that are completely dependent on that oil flow, an event like this is, well, it's society ending. Their economies just stop working. For the United States, it would be a massive blow, for sure, a really deep recession. But, and this is the key part, the fundamental structure of the economy would still be there. It would still be intact.
So this horrifying global picture is what leads us to that final, really weird paradoxical outcome for the US dollar. Because in a world that's totally gripped by crisis, you have to ask, where does all the money go to stay safe?
I mean, really, put yourself in the shoes of a global investor or a big pension fund or some huge corporation. Every other major economy, from Europe to Asia, is just imploding. Where on earth do you park your capital so it doesn't just disappear into thin air? Think about it. Before a crisis like this, yeah, there were tons of reasons to be worried about the dollar, right? You had erratic trade policy, political drama, regulatory uncertainty, all good reasons to be skeptical. But when a full-blown global crisis hits, all of those concerns just get wiped off the board. They become what geopolitical strategist Peter Zeihan calls minor details. All of a sudden, there's only one thing that matters: safety, keeping your capital from being destroyed. And that triggers this massive, desperate stampede, what they call a flight to safety. Global money just floods into U.S. assets like Treasury bonds. Why? Because it's the only market in the world that's deep enough and stable enough to actually handle that kind of influx. And all that massive demand, it forces the value of the dollar to skyrocket. And here's the paradox in a nutshell. It's not going up because the U.S. economy is doing great. It's going up because every other option is broken. It's a strength that comes from everyone else's weakness. The brutal truth is, in a global meltdown, there's simply nowhere else for the money to go. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What kind of system have we built where the last safe harbor is a place that's held up by global chaos?